The following is a conversation with Anna Sundberg, who co-authored a book of memoirs titled My Beloved Terrorist. This book is an incredible and rare story of how a young woman from a coastal village of Sweden called Halmstad, who is otherwise your ABBA stereotype of a blonde Swede with blue eyes, became radicalized in Islam and ultimately married the jihadist terrorist leader Saeed Arif, who was captured by the Syrian secret police and had included in his network the likes of Osama Bin Laden. It's been hard for me to put into words exactly how I feel about this episode, but one thing for sure is how incredible of a woman Anna Sundberg is. This is the first time she's ever told this story in English, and following the central timeline of her experiences, she answers questions about why Islam was even compelling in the first place, secular Sweden, how steeply and quickly one can become radicalized, a day in the life of a jihadist wife, living in Chechnya, living in Syria, living in Berlin, being an extremist Muslim in all of these places, re-entry into Sweden, de-radicalisation, becoming an atheist, culture, and more. And as I'm sure you would have seen, this is a bit of a longer episode, and that's even taking into account everything that we chopped out as well. So while this episode took me closer to 10 hours to put together, it will only take you 5 seconds to review. So swipe up the phone, jot in 5 stars into Spotify, jot in 10 stars on your Apple, and with absolutely no further ado, here is the incredible Anna Sundberg. Mrs. Sundberg, please tell me about the place that you grew up.
I grew up in a large town in the west coast in Sweden by the ocean, and we had a villa, and it was my two parents. They lived together. I had a brother. My parents were working, and it was a safe environment. I would say I was happy, and it was normal, everything. I had friends, and that like that, normal upbringing.
Help me understand what Sweden was like at the time.
Sweden was social democratic. We had like a safe system. A lot of people had work, and we had many had cars, maybe 2 cars, and it was we were 86. Olof Palme was murdered, but when I was small, it was safe and nothing happened for me, or I didn't see anything strange. I hardly saw people from other countries where I lived. It was kind of strange in that way. I had no contact with people who were like really poor, and one family had moved into our neighborhood who was from former Yugoslavia. And I thought, me and my friends thought it was kind of strange because we were not really used to that. When I was a bit older, I started to take some interest in politics, and I find that many of my friends' families were a bit superficial and a bit into materialistic kind of living. Mm-hmm. And it was like that where I grew up. People were into golf, and they went abroad and had nice houses. So it was very normal.
And the town is called Halmstad.
Halmstad.
Which is on the west coast of Sweden.
Yeah.
And what decade were you raised in?
Yeah, I was born 71, so it was that era, I don't know what to say more.
So it's a very interesting commentary that you didn't even see people from other countries.
No.
And it was notable when some Yugoslavian, well, I suppose they were refugees maybe. Was that around the time of the war?
No,
I'm not sure.
no, it was not. I think they were work. Maybe they moved here to work in the 60s, and it was very, people from. I know that people from Turkey and Greece and Finland and Yugoslavia moved here to work because the factories needed a lot of people. I think those 90s later was another thing with the war in Bosnia.
Okay. But it's more leading to a question of how the community responded to people that weren't Swedish sort of showing up.
Yeah. It was we had places in Halmstad where people who were a bit poorer moved in and had rent places, and I didn't meet those people. I met them sometimes at a swimming pool or maybe at the beach somewhere, but I didn't get to know them. We went abroad, but we went to charter, this way of living.
And so you said that as you got older, politics sort of entered your life.
Yeah.
Was the Islamic influence after the politics or before the politics?
After. For me,
more to ask, what led to the exposure to the, extremism?
Yeah. Well, I after my school was ended, I moved abroad, and I met people from all over the place. I got to know a person from Kosovo, for instance, and he was Muslim, and but mostly I just hung around Swiss people because I was au pair in Switzerland. And also I got to know hashish for the first time in my life. I think that had an impact in some way for me. It was not good for my head. When I was finished, when this trip was over, I went to Stockholm to work a bit, and I got to know how it was to work and how to be exploited, which made me angry, and I was very upset about that. And then I started to study in Lund. And when I studied in Lund, I got to know a lot of people who were into philosophy and social science and those subjects. I studied religion because I was interested in that. So in those days, I got into politics, kind of like we were discussing society a lot, me and my friends. At the same time, I continued to smoke a bit hashish, and it was, that way. And I was into theater and singing and dancing and a lot of cultural stuff at the same time. And it was in that era I got to know somebody that put me in the situation that evolved into something very big and dramatic. But before that, I had actually been thinking I have to leave this society. I have to move out in the jungle or somewhere because I was.
So you're a radical.
Yeah, I was. I can't stand this this thing of like this way of living, just gathering money and paying a lot of. Just everything evolved around money and like higher the BNP or something like that.
Yeah.
I had it was for me very strange, and I got upset and angry about that. So in that time I met this man who was Muslim and who in Lund, and I was very, very taken by him. And without him saying anything, I just happened to be. I got to know. I got in faith. In Swedish, we call it like you get the salvation. You see the light or something like that. And And it was an amazing happening for me, but it was not very healthy.
Okay.
It was too quick, too radical, and he was not a good man. It happens. He was not very honest. But from that point on, I steadily took away in my life that was completely different. And I just happened to feel like it was Islam, because he didn't say anything about Islam in this conversation we had in the park in Lund. But I happened to just understood he was Muslim, because he looked like he was from North Africa. But I didn't ask him. So I found like I had got all the answers in one sheet. Like, okay, here is the answer. The point of the living, the meaning, where are you going? Aha, you're a woman, you have to work like this and do like this and dress like this. All the answers in one time. So it was just marvelous. And at last I knew how to live, because I didn't know how should I live to be a good person. And I needed to know that. And how should a society be to be good? For me, all the answers came, and I was just like euphoric.
Right. Before, what are the situations that led you to a point where you were so desperate to get those answers to those questions? How to live? What is my place in the society? Because, you explained how you were talking about politics and studying religion, and all of your friends would have these big discussions. You maybe were going to escape to the jungle and live off the land. What was the compelling reason for why Islam offered you those answers?
Because I got to know another dimension in the world. For me, I had been an atheist and not interested in being a believer, really, just fascinated by religion. So when I got to know God, as I thought, I thought like God had been hiding from me before. And now when he emerged and showed himself or so, it was like, I have been here all the time. You haven't noticed, you haven't known that. So it was like a totally new world had opened for me. That was the reason. And I had been for several years trying to find the purpose in life, and I had been discussing, and I had a boyfriend for some time who was really, I think, important for my way of thinking, and he had been stripping me from my old views. My old conservative views I had from Halmstad, and questioning them. So I was kind of like clean sheet when I got to know this person who was Muslim. And all this together with hashish and my involvement in this thinking of leaving the society and all put together was like a bomb in my life, and it happened.
How much of an embrace of Islam specifically was in fact just a rejection of Sweden, because Sweden is probably one of the least religious cultures in the entire world, and conservative Islam, extremist Islam, is probably as close to the direct opposite of that as you could find. So how much of embracing this ideology was, whether conscious or unconscious, a way to totally strip yourself of Sweden and this culture that represented these things you weren't interested in?
Yeah, I think I was a rebel. I was totally throwing away everything, and I'm sure people later on, they hated me for that, because I really took a stand against the way of living. And for me today, it's totally ridiculous and strange, and because Sweden is a very good country, I believe, Yeah. I rejected it. I rejected everything about the Western way of life. Actually, it was not just Sweden. I was. It was like I was. If this didn't happen, maybe I would have been a communist or something, But I'm not sure if I understood your question. But
so my question was more just how much of embracing this particular set of rules and prescriptions about how the world should be and how one should live within the world, how much of embracing that, which is Islam, was the exact opposite of what Sweden was. The idea of equality between the genders, for instance, the idea of serving a god, the idea of praying, the idea of dressing conservatively. It's like if you were to do a checklist of opposite ends of the spectrum.
Exactly. It was. I wanted to know how a woman should be. I was very confused about feminism, free sexuality. I was into. Okay, I don't believe in God, but I believe in love. And so okay, this was so confusing for me. I didn't know any direction. So this was from this point of view, I just rejected that men and women were the same. I rejected that you had to be a part of the society. I rejected that you have to have a job and education. I rejected that women and men could dress the same. In the further on, I rejected peace, and I rejected everything I was taught to from the beginning. And it's so strange, as I was a theater person and very, very outgoing, emotional, very friendly and very happy and laughing loudly. I just took away that from myself. I was like from, up and down. I was like just smooth like this. Nothing should shake me, and I shouldn't move. I shouldn't look into eyes of men anymore. It was looking down. It was totally not me.
Yeah.
So, opposite in every way.
And so how old are you when you meet this man?
I was 23.
And quite a significant moment, but also like a shocking moment, for lack of a better word, in the book, is when you start wearing a burqa. And this is the 90s in Sweden. You could well have been the first Swedish woman to ever wear a burqa in Sweden, potentially.
Maybe, I don't know.
How quickly, after meeting this man, are you fully on board with with Islam and with the sort of extreme nature that you've adopted as well?
Well, I married him 2 weeks after we met, which is rather quickly, of course. And I phoned to my old friends, my male friends, and said I could not hang with you anymore.
Yeah.
That was very very significantly quick and drastic. But for me to become like a full blown Muslim or something was a year where I studied a lot and got into the thinking, and I struggled with myself during that year. And by that time I started to wear the niqab which is the veil for in front of the face. I never wore a burqa, which is like a Taliban way of clothing, but I had a niqab. And my sisters had that too, my Muslim sisters. I really was disciplined. I really wanted to work with myself to develop into this perfect Muslim woman. And we were, the women I met were very keen on that. We all helped each other to educate each other and all the time remembering, like giving each other advice to become stronger. And everything evolved around Islam. And
So in 2 weeks, you've gone from a university student to married to a Muslim man, calling your friends, your family, telling them you've made this decision. How are people responding to the how are people responding to this?
They got mostly sad, I would say, but and questioning me and asking, "Are you really sure?" And "Oh no," like, and some got like really sad and started to cry, and my parents got very worried and upset. And I had to tell them that you have to accept this, otherwise I cannot be with you, I cannot meet you. So it was very rough for them. But some said, "Okay, are you? We respect your decision. You are educated person. You're not totally dumb or something like that. You manage. You okay? If this is good for you, I must respect that. I'm sorry that we cannot see each other anymore." And some even, I remember one friend, he said like, "Oh, interesting," like that, He was not very upset.
No.
Okay.
And in that first year, when you're diving deep into the religion, its customs, its practices, how often are you having moments of regret?
A few times. I remember I was sitting in a car, sitting in the back seat of a car, and it was a man driving, and my husband was sitting beside him. And I got this feeling. I just woke up, like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here with these clothes and sitting while these men are taking charge, and there is my old home. I was just passing by Ulrikedal, where I was living before in Lund, in the student complex. It was so strange, and I just wanted to open the door and get out. And I think at the same time, my husband said, "You should fasten your seatbelt," like he knew or something, that I was getting into some flight mode. But yeah, and then after that, I had some conversations with my sisters, some of them, like, isn't it strange that Muhammad, he had these revelations just when he needed them, isn't it really, we had some doubts, they came up, but we just, rationalized it and took them away, and so we could continue. And I never... Well, I had my husband, he decided he wanted to marry again. And when he took another wife, that was, of course, a crisis for me. It was, even if I tried to, this is in Islam, I have to accept it, but it was too hard for me. I got emotional and I got scared. And it was like, it felt like a big hole in me, like, It was very, very strong feeling. So we got into an argument, and he told me to move to my parents, and that was that. Then it shook, of course. But I decided, no, I have to go back. So I went back, and I continued on this road. But there, and then I should have left. You know, it was everything. Everything was presented for me, but I still carried on.
Was it pride?
Yeah, I'm
that
sure.
Kept you there?
Yeah, I'm sure. It was pride. I didn't want to acknowledge that I had made very, very strange decisions. I disciplined myself into this.
And so back to the timeline.
Yeah.
You are married to this man. He takes on another wife. In the book, she's called Josephine. Is she a Swede as well?
Yeah.
Okay. And you both fall pregnant at a certain point. So how old are you, and can you pick up the story from there?
I was 25, and Josephine got pregnant 2 months before me. And I got like, this was like I got very jealous. I remember that she was before me, pregnant, even if I was married before her with this man. So after that, I got pregnant too, and we had 2 children, and we were by that point we got together. We were like friends in need, kind of, because we had noticed that our husband wasn't very good. Yeah. So we found comfort in each other. Yeah. And we got more children, and she got divorced, and I got divorced, and we followed each other in that. But she married again. And by in my divorce time, I had a proposal from a person who was like a very respected person from other families, and they were talking about him in a very serene way. This is the real thing kind of way.
As in love, or he's an honorable man?
He's an honorable man. Okay. Yeah, this man is the real Muslim guy, right. And I understood he had been to Afghanistan, this person, and he was a mujahid. And I understood he is some kind of Al-Qaeda person. I put the pieces together. Mm-hmm. And this was a man who was not just sitting around talking, because I had, and Josephine had come into a group in Lund who was not normal Muslims. They were, in fact, Salafis with jihadistic ideology. That means they thought they should create a Muslim country by force, and I just happened to come into that group, and I just embraced that ideology, and I learned about that, and other Muslim friends, women, sisters. Were already there, so they taught me how it was. They already had a good, mujahid husband, and they taught me this. So I started to long for a real husband that was a real Muslim, and showed by action that he was serious. And then when I divorced this Walid, as he's called in the book, this serious Muslim proposed to me, and we met in London. I went there, and we were like going to marry, But in that, he was my former husband. He phoned London and stopped that by talking to this sheikh who was everybody's the person who everybody went to talk to and to who they listened to in London.
It sounds like you had a deeper respect for this second man because he was a good Muslim, and the way that you viewed him as an honourable good Muslim was that he had skin in the game. He was committed to the cause and willing to, be violent against the enemy and so forth. There's one element to, just from me, like trying to understand the story of understanding why you might fall into the religion in the first place, as you described, all the different circumstances happen to line up at the right time. What did you think about violence or jihad before you had fallen into Islam as well? Do they necessarily go hand in hand, or could you totally fall into a religion but keep your opinions on violence or keep your morality on violence to one side? So, sorry, that was a terribly worded question. Let me say that again. What were your ideas about violence and jihad before Islam, but also before this second man?
Before Islam, I didn't know much about jihad or violent Muslims, or I've heard about Palestine, and I've heard about that problem, but no, I didn't know a lot about that, and so for me it was just presented as the truth, the truth with a big T. So it was this way only that we were the chosen people, this group. I was before Islam, I was like a pacifist. So this is so strange. I just fell into this and took the whole truth and nothing but the truth. This is the thing, and nothing else. I didn't want to question it. I didn't want to stand on a shaky, to be ambivalent.
Yeah.
Anymore in my life, so I just swallowed this. Is that an answer?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. During the years between meeting the Walid and having a child, and then meeting the second man, are you keeping in contact with your family?
Yeah, I had contact with them.
So how often would you speak with them and keep them updated about what's going on?
I think for the first year when I didn't really feel very good, I think I spoke with my mom every day and also with my father. I also went to meet them, and I did that as because I had to invite them to Islam.
Right.
Normally you are not supposed to hang with non-Muslims in this group. You should be careful, because they could invite you to something that was bad, and music and nakedness and also democracy or anything like that should be held from you. But I went there so that I could remind them about what's the purpose of life and things. Many times, and it made me. I'm happy because that was very important for what later came. If I didn't have my family, if they would have shunned me, I would have been alone.
Yeah.
So that they accepted my way of living, if I didn't, I wasn't bad. I was a nice person to them. So it was, it worked, our agreement.
And you mentioned that your first husband wasn't a good Muslim. So, there are details in the book about how he wouldn't work. He would sort of steal to get his money. What were some of the characteristics of him that made him a bad Muslim?
Well, I noticed he lied a lot. He didn't dress as he should. He had tight jeans. He had a bad beard. He wanted to have not the Sunna beard, and the beard traditionally big and and he smoked.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so that's not okay.
No, not in that group.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I felt like he was drinking alcohol on his breath. And I think he was also hanging with women. So me and Josephine were very upset and worried about what he was doing. And we loathed him, like you say that? We despised him a bit.
Loathed.
Yeah. Loathed.
Yeah.
Loathed. Yeah.
Loathed.
Yeah, okay. So we fell out of respect, we didn't respect him anymore. And it didn't work,
Did you ever have romantic feelings about him, or was it all wrapped up in the idea of this religion and you doing your role as a good Muslim woman?
First, I was romantic about him because I thought he was a perfect person. I thought he was totally honest, and he was representing Islam and kind of God for me in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, that was intermixed. Okay, so but rather directly, I felt he was not honest, and how he spoke with people, how he was not taking care of his prayers and everything. It was very obvious that he wasn't the thing.
In your throughout your life, how many times did you come across men who just used religion as an excuse to get away with a bunch of dirty stuff, right? So for instance, this guy, if he didn't have Islam to stand behind, where there's a strict hierarchy between the man, the woman, the husband, the wife, he can get away with being a bit of a dirtbag. Whereas in secular society, he would be judged on different merits.
Yeah.
It would mean nothing to me in my relationship with him, what he believed in. It would more be, what type of a person is he? So in your life, how much men have you come across? How often do you find these people who hide behind the religion?
Never.
This is not an example of it?
Yeah, but never before. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean,
before this, no, never.
But also in your entire life. In your experience with many different flavors of Islam.
This was the first time I met a man that was pretending to be a Muslim to get privileges and things. Yeah, but after that, I saw some of these men who were doing the same thing, using their privilege of being a man to exploit women, and they were really dirtbags, really bad people, and this was I noticed it, and I just collected these people inside, and then it was it happened something else later on, but it was not all of the men. Some of them were honest and good, as I noticed. I didn't, they were not friends to me, but I noticed. But many of them were bad. And then later on in life, I mean, I have seen and heard stories about religious people in all kinds of religions that just did the same. Mostly men using God to do whatever they wanted, and they made excuses for themselves to not follow the rules, but did it anyway, It is very common.
Yeah. So return us to the timeline. You are in London, meeting with this man who is to become your second husband. What happens from there?
So this Abu Qatada intervened and said, your ex-husband has called me and wanted Said as my proposal husband there. He wanted to, the person who wanted to marry me should step back because Walid wants to have another go, kind of, because he has 2 children with her. Right. So Said should step back. And so I was sent back to Sweden and kind of, okay, maybe this is good because I should give him another chance, but I would make it very hard on him, like he has to change. And I made a contract, so he had to follow some rules. Otherwise, I said, otherwise I want to have a divorce, and he should leave me with the children, which was not normal, even if I marry again. That was a very strong thing. And if he continues to drink and smoke and don't make his prayers and so on and so forth, I should go. And he didn't want to sign first, but other brothers said he should, and and then he did. And I, okay. And I noticed like it was very quick. He didn't he couldn't hold these conditions. Yeah. So I threw him out.
Good on you.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was that experience like?
It was. I was very focused and like decisive and very not nostalgic, like
sentimental.
No, sentimental. I just bye. I'm sorry you couldn't do what you promised, and now I have this paper here, and you should go. So it was nothing. No, not at all hard. Yeah, and as it happens, the same day as my waiting period after my divorce, because you have to have a waiting period, because if you were pregnant or something, it was over. Okay. This side phoned me and said like he was still there. Mm-hmm. So we decided, okay, then now we marry, and we married by proxy because he couldn't come to Sweden. So somebody married us, and and I was happy, and I was sure, okay, I have this paper, children they stay with me, and it can't get to me, but it wasn't like that. He took the children, and I was not allowed to see them. Said and me, we decided I should leave and put this trouble in the hands of God. We thought that he would make a mess of this, and I could have the children after a while. We were sure about that. And by this time, Said was in Berlin. So I took my things and I went there. I moved there.
And you're 25, 6?
I was 29.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry to linger on the first please. Relationship for a long time, but because it's edited and stuff, we can spend a lot of time
because
in different places.
I forget things,
No, you're doing amazing.
Okay.
So what language and where are you living throughout the years of this first relationship? Because it sounds like, and also what are you doing? I mean, this must be 7, 8, 9 years of your life. So what language is what language is your relationship in? Where are you living? And what are you doing? with your time?
You asked what language is your relationship.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Was he a Swedish speaking person?
No, he was. My first husband. You asked.
Yes.
Yeah, we were speaking in English first, but we slowly went into Swedish. We were staying in this university town in Lund, where I've been studying. I continued to study a bit also. I studied Arabic and sociology and psychology a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
So then you're 29 years old, and you're in Berlin now with your second husband. So pick up the story from there.
Okay. Yeah, he was Saidi was a very solemn person. He was serious, educated, honest guy. He was he had a kind of aura around him, like that you respect him immediately, like he was okay.
Can I ask you a question on that point?
Yeah. Do that.
You've said how he was respected because he was a good Muslim, but I wonder whether there are other more just base human reasons why he might be respected more than other people. Was he, say, handsome? Was he tall? Was he deep voiced? Did he command a room? Could he speak really well? Things that might, in a totally separate circumstance, make someone solemn or respected.
Yeah.
Did he have these qualities, or could he also be like a small, unattractive person, but because he's a good Muslim, he gets the respect? So I'm just trying to understand that.
It's a very interesting question. When he first sent me a photo of himself, I saw just his face, and it was like a distinguished face. I couldn't see the rest of him, but I saw his photo, and it just struck me like, wow. But he wasn't. But he wasn't handsome. He wasn't really handsome. It was something in his look that hit me, like he was
a man of purpose.
I don't know. It's very strange. Thin, like a big hooked nose. And big brown eyes with a little bit hanging in his eyelid, like he looked a little bit like
suspicious.
I'm not sure I can explain that in English. Well, and gray hair, even if he's not really, he wasn't really old, but he had gray hair already and sharp, short hair. No, anyway, the first time I met him in person, he was so thin. He was too thin, so I got like, ugh. It was like he was starving. It was not. It was not attractive. But I interpreted it. As he was serious and he was fasting a lot. The second time when we really were married, I just threw away that if he wasn't attractive enough, it was just not. It was not important. He spoke many languages. He was very. He spoke very well. He was very wise when he spoke, and it just landed good in me how he was talking to me. So when I met him and he was standing there in the airport, he was clean shaving, and had like a suit, because he was undercover, kind of. He was not supposed to look Muslim,
right?
And it was very mystic, like ooh, and he came looking like this and picked me up from the airport with my black niqab and hijab thing, and he took me into the taxi, and he was telling in fluent German to the taxi driver, please take away the music. And I was very impressed, you know, like this man from Algeria speaking perfect English in British accent and perfect German too, and and he was undercover, you know.
Wow.
For me, it was very. Even if he was not playing an act. Yeah. He was like that. Right. He was doing this from a purpose. Yeah. So that struck me as romantic too, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. And then from this respect I had, it just evolved into some kind of hate. I was into some feeling of tenderness.
Sure.
Yeah, and then into love. And he supported me in this early period in Berlin as I was without my children, and it was hard to get to reach them, and he had a lot of sympathy and empathy about that. So with I had a lot of patience, and I remember he was talking about Moses, the story of Moses in the Old Testament, you know, and also in the Quran, where the mother had to hide him and put her trust in God, so that he would come back to her after. Yeah. And it was that story he told me, and it was it was very comforting for me.
It worked as
of course, yeah, it worked. I was comforted, and we had patience and waited, and a few weeks later, now I don't remember how many weeks it was, Walid made a fool of himself, and my parents could go and get the children. Yep. And I went to Halmstad and took them with me back to Berlin. But it was, it was very, now when I think back, how could I do that, leave them? But I was feeling a bit safe because Josephine was there, and Walid's sister was there in just around my children. So I didn't leave them totally to him. But I did go. I did travel.
And Josephine remained married to him?
Yeah, she was married to him by this time. Yep. And had 3 children by this time. She didn't want to leave him I think from old memories when she was young, divorce thing.
So, your new husband tells you this story of Moses from the Bible, and your children are eventually returned to you. You know, he was very prophetic in sort of, by trusting in God, they would come back to you, and it happened.
Yes.
Which presumably really cemented the faith, helped with the faith.
Yeah.
How often in these years, we're maybe about 9 years into the story right now of you being an Islamic person, or I don't know, believing in Islam, how often are you questioning the faith? Internally, obviously not externally, but saying, do I really believe this? All my friends don't believe in a God.
It was in the beginning, you know. By this time,
by the time you're in Berlin, there's no question.
No, it was just a bit insecurity I had there, because I knew I was totally dependent. Except God, I was dependent on this person, this man who was there without documents, and I knew that, okay, you know, I was a modern woman. I knew that if the police took him, I had to find my way out of this mess by myself, because I can, you know. So this was the only the only like doubt I had, I was not sure he was gonna work this. This was gonna work actually. So.
Okay, so you're in Berlin now. You have your kids. Your new husband is has a high status in the community, and he seems to be a bit of a man of mystery. He can speak French, Arabic, German, English. What happens then?
Well, we during this time we were living. He didn't work. I noticed that he had cars. He took care of cars, and then the cars went away. It was very expensive cars, and he explained to me that he had fake credit cards and fake IDs, and he rented them, and then he sent them to Algeria, I think, and got money for them. And this money he took a little bit for us, and the rest he sent to the brothers. So this was his purpose in Europe, to gather money and also material for Mujahideen in Afghanistan and Chechnya by this time. This I got to know, but not many details. He met some people sometimes, also clean-shaved younger men who came by. One person came by who had been in Chechnya, and he was talking about his experiences there. And Said told me a bit about them. He told funny stories about the Mujahideen and the life, hard life they had, you know. And he loved pancakes, so we called him Abu Pankaka because it was funny. Now he comes and we have to do pankaka to him. And he was a nice guy, but what I've understood. What was your question again?
Just basically the timeline. What's happening?
Yeah.
So he's doing the cars.
He's doing that.
But it's leading up to the Strasbourg attack, and you ultimately going to Chechnya.
Yes. I didn't know what was going on and what these people he had contact with did. I got to know way later. But he said to me once, there is something big going to happen. And we had moved to another apartment, and I didn't really know why, but it was, I think, a security measure he did. And in April, I think it was, 2000 and...
Pre-2001.
Yeah, it must be 2000. I left Berlin and I went back to Sweden. And he was going to... we were talking about going to Afghanistan. But by this time, we also knew that my ex-husband and Josephine was talking about going to Afghanistan. And we didn't want to stay close to him.
I mean, it's a big country.
Yeah, but you know, the Arab Mujahideen, they stay together internationally. Mujahideen, they. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly what made him decide other things. But I went back to Sweden, and I was by this time pregnant. So I waited for him there, and waited for him to tell me what was going to happen next and where we were living and staying and so on. And then we decided, he got to tell me that, okay, now I know what we're going to do. We're going to a place called Duisi in Georgia. Georgia?
Georgia. Georgia.
Yeah, you say that. And I got some help from his brothers and in Sweden, and they helped me to drive to Copenhagen airport. and sent me to this place. I don't think I've heard about it before. It's called Tbilisi. It's it's the capital in Georgia, and it was a very special experience because it was like totally black. They had an energy crisis, and I got picked up by two people I didn't know, and they just called me by my Muslim name. They said Umanes, and I said Naam, and like yes in Arabic, and they just put us in the car and drove away up in the mountain, and it was a terrible car ride because it was they took small roads and this was another chapter. Yeah.
Sorry everyone about the abrupt cut off there. My recording equipment ran out of batteries, and so we lost only a few minutes, unfortunately. However, we took that time to take a break, and as you'll hear when the audio comes back, I'm eating a donut, and I sound a bit muffled. But nonetheless, here we are. We're back with the rest of the podcast. Okay, so we're in Chechnya now, but before you describe your time there, could you talk about the planned terrorist attack on Strasbourg and your husband's involvement in all of that, and your sort of revelation that he's really involved in the extremist side of Islam?
Well, he was talking about something that something big was going to happen. He had by one time he had come home with a bag of pistols. Different kind of pistols in a it was like a metal thing, a metal bag, and that was for me very concrete that this person is into violence. It's just not, it's not something he just like a fantasy. It was real, and he was talking about the brothers. But I didn't know really anything by that time. It was something that I've understood much later. There was a group in Frankfurt who was planning to attack the Christmas market in Strasbourg, and they were constructing bombs, and they were, I believe, as my husband had been educated and got the education of doing education, sure. Like doing explosives.
Yeah, they learned how to make bombs.
Yeah, they knew how to make bombs, and they were doing that or planning to do that, and I didn't know by that time that we were supervised. They were listening in on the phone calls and his contacts, and they knew a lot about our activities.
And by they you mean the Mujahideen?
I'm sorry. I mean the secret services, not secret service.
The Swedish, the Säpo.
I'm not sure, but all the European, many European police under surveillance police were onto him.
Okay.
And had connected him to this network, this group, and it was, I believe, French police, German police, British police, and I suppose Säpo was like in there too, but not like the same dignity by that time. Also Italians, I think. They were just working together. So I believe they were waiting and just looking which contacts he have, and and so, and they knew I was going back to Sweden and they were waiting to see what contacts he had, you know. So sitting back and trying to understand his network. This I believe was going to take place soon. I'm not sure about the year now, but they were arrested. These people, so they stopped. They could stop this plan they had, and my husband he disappeared. They understood he went from Berlin to Italy, and then he went to Tbilisi, and he disappeared. So he got away, and by that time I was in Sweden and waiting for him to tell me what to do.
And so then you meet him in Chechnya.
Yeah, in Georgia.
In Georgia.
Yeah, this was like a autonomous place. It was like a place in between Chechnya and Georgia, who was not really under
they're not under a sovereignty, an autonomous region.
Yeah, autonomous region. So this were the place we were going, and this were where he had got us a house. He wanted to be there so he could go back and forth into Chechnya, and in the same time do some practice, shooting practice, and I don't know exactly.
Like he was really preparing himself for total war.
Yeah, he was preparing himself to fight the Russians by that time.
Okay.
The Russians who were fighting against Chechenian Mujahideen. So this was just in his ideology, like Muslims were attacked by non-Muslims, and we believed in our group that it was an obligation for other Muslims to go there and
defend them.
Defend.
Yeah.
So this was, what he was doing.
Okay, so there, just to put on the timeline, you're now in Georgia. It's sort of early 2000. You at some point need to go back to Sweden to give birth, but then later in the year 2001, the whole world's attention changes when it comes to Islamic people and especially jihadi Islam. So take us through that series of events up until 9/11.
We were living in this small house in this very wonderful place called Duisi. It was a valley in this Pankisi Valley, and me and my husband got another family coming, and we were staying with them, a woman and a man. So I had company there. I was pregnant, and me and this sister were getting along very well. My husband was going to the brother's house, which was situated in the mountains a bit away, where they were practicing other things, and my like shooting and things, and my children were sometimes by me, sometimes he took them with him, so they could learn Arabic and also shoot, practice, and ride horses and things like this. And my oldest, my boys were 5 and 3 by this. My son, oldest son Anas, he remembers this as a very nice time. It was like summer holiday for him, very exciting and nice.
You also write about it as being a very happy time in your life as well.
Yeah, it was very beautiful place to be. Nice persons, Chechenian refugees were living around us. They were very hospitable.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
we were
good hospitality.
Yeah, good hospitality, and I felt welcome and a bit special because I was foreigner. I was Swedish, and they were looking up to me, I think, and I felt special. And we didn't have a lot of food, though. We were longing for different kinds of food we didn't get, but we were, it was okay. We didn't starve.
What were you eating?
A lot of bread and egg, and a lot of vegetables. No cheese, no. It was really, I longed for cheese and I longed for cornflakes. But we had the house was very Spartanskt. It was simple. We didn't have electricity more than 2 hours a day. We had water in the garden, and we had like a hole in the garden where we did our where we did the toilet things, and we called the toilet Putin. That was our. We were washing and cooking and things, and we didn't go shop because the men did that. We went for walks and we hang with some of the women. That was the daily life.
It would be really interesting to hear actually what is a day in the life of you at this stage. If you just take, because I'm interested to know. What actually are you doing to fill your time? What are you allowed to do? What are you not to do? Are you still tempted to listen to music or read a book, or are you such a good Muslim that you are not even tempted by this stuff? So take me through a day in the life and in this idyllic time where you're living as good Muslims. What are you actually doing?
I'm trying to remember now. We were taking care of our husbands when they were home, doing the food, and being pleasant to them. Then they left, and we took care of the cleaning, talking a lot with this woman, and sometimes we went out to meet some other women there, but it wasn't very. Not a lot, I think. We were.
And what are you guys talking about?
My sister from Algeria, she was talking a lot about the war she had experienced. It was the Groupe Islamique Armée, which was a group which formed itself after the Islamic Party was taken from was robbed from the power in Algeria, and they moved up to the mountain and did like terrorist acts, and her husband and her brother were into that thing. She was talking a lot about that. We were spending time with our neighbors. An old man died, for instance, and we had to we experienced the Sufi funeral, and how they took care of sick people, and
I guess I'm trying to ask, did you ever speak about things you were not supposed to? Would you guys gossip about your husbands and, gossip about things that, if your husband was listening in on, would not be happy with you talking about, for instance? Did you break the rules and let your hair out a bit and, what's the term? Yeah, and put your feet up.
Yeah, okay. No, we didn't. No, really, no. Well, I have like some memories that I thought she was talking too much. Like I think she was a little bit too. I was a little bit more careful, but she was speaking a lot about her life and a little bit gossiping, I think. We were in a few weeks staying in that place. It was closed, so nobody could see into our garden, so we could walk around and do our business in the garden without our hijab on. But when we laughed too loud and my husband heard, he had to tell me to not laugh, because the neighbors heard us and he was embarrassed.
So that's form of modesty?
Yeah.
Is laughing specifically a problem, or is it that you couldn't control how loud you were, and that is a sign of immodesty?
Yeah. Laugh is like singing for this Muslim man. It's attractive, you shouldn't do that, so they hear it. And he also told me that when he was non-Muslim, like non-practicing Muslim in Algeria, he told me that women who laughed hard or highly, loudly, they were the women you went to when you wanted to do immoral things. So he was warning me to be so that people could hear me that way.
You loved performing. You were in theatre. I mean, were you ever bored during these times, thinking, God, I wish I could just laugh or listen to some music?
Yes.
And just indulge in some culture, Well, maybe that sounds like an ignorant statement, but at least indulge in the culture of Sweden or Western culture.
We were listening to singing, and it was Islamic singing, and we were enjoying that very much. I don't remember that I was really longing to listen to music anymore, but when I heard, it was like forbidden, It was like in my spine that I shouldn't. By that time. But when we heard the Sufi singing by one time, this funeral, I was intrigued because it was so beautiful, and it was forbidden too, because it was they were practicing something from a way of Islam that was not in our way, so that was forbidden, and the only thing I remember actually is that she and I was talking a little bit too much. That was not okay, and we were laughing a little bit too much, and we were maybe talking about the neighbors in a maybe not so nicely sometimes, but we were also very serious. Even if we were alone all day and waiting for our husbands to come home, we were never forgetting why we were there. And as I also had children to take care of, I needed to remind myself and them what was the purpose of everything. Yeah.
Was raising your kids during this time, were you tempted to shield them a little bit from Islam for them to potentially make their own minds up about religion? Maybe that's an unfair question, but you being raised in Halmstad, presumably everyone around you always said, a woman can do everything that a man can do. This is Sweden. And then up in the mountains of Georgia, it's kind of like, no, there are very defined roles for the two of you guys. Raising your own kids, how did those sort of conflicting ideas influence you?
I was living in some kind of fantasy, and I was not realistic. But I had my mind set upon we are now in a very special group, the group that is assigned to do this other Muslims cannot do. So I had to raise my boys to be a next generation of Mujahid. I was not sure about how that could be, but I left it in God's responsibility and my husband's. So I just by that time I was not I wasn't realistic, and I wasn't in the reality. I was living kind of fantasy adventure thing, and by the time September came and we were listening into radio and what happened, first the attack in New York, that was for us like a fairy tale kind of thing. David won over Goliath, now we have now the Muslims have revenged on the United States all the bad things they have done, and so on. And we were even more into a non-reality, or like in a reality that is not really there. It was fantasies. And we understood it was something really big that had happened, and I remember the men was so proud. They were so proud, and they were happy by this event, and it was a mixed feeling for me. I couldn't really. I understood there were deaths, there were blood, there were suffering, but it was like it had to be something like fatalistic, yeah, yeah, and then later on, United States struck on Iraq. And I was, well, they were attacking Afghanistan and then later on Iraq, and I understood all this this had a really terrible impact on all the Muslims in the world, but it was like had to be kind of feeling. Yeah, this is how it. This is what happens when you attack Muslims. We have to strike back, and we were just floating with this and accepting it and trying to put it in our own understanding of. It was not something we questioned as wrong. Never. It was not. It was the faith that was important here for us. We believed this was had to be.
Were people talking about 9/11 and this plan for a terrorist attack in your community before it happened, or did it come as a total surprise to everyone there?
I saw it as a total surprise, and in that way that we didn't know anything about this before. I didn't hear it.
Was the Al-Qaeda at all affiliated with the Mujahideen?
Well, yeah. Yes, my husband had in his early traveling to Afghanistan met with Osama bin Laden, and his way of thinking and his way of his ideology, my husband took it right off, like this is the way, and he was the sheikh, the big sheikh. My husband, he saw up to him. He was admiring him. He was very rich. He was a very rich man, but he chose to live simple in the cave, And my husband, he idolized him.
Yeah. So you end up in Syria. Can you explain the events that take you from Georgia to Syria?
Well, I was, as I told you, I was pregnant in Georgia, and we didn't want my child to be born there. It wasn't safe, so we decided I should go back to Sweden alone, which I did. I took my children, I went back, and I was going to go to have the child and then come back to Pankisi. We were talking about, But just a few months later, the Pankisi was attacked by the Russians, so that was not possible. So I stayed in Sweden. My child was born. It was a daughter, and I waited for the next move. And my husband, he turned up one day, and he to see his daughter, and stayed a while, and then he went again. And after a time, I understood that we were going to live in Syria, as it was now a new frontier with the Mujahideen, and so it was in Iraq. So he wanted to have his family in a kind of safe place where they could learn Arabic and go to school, while he could go back and forth. What was his plan? And I went there in 2003 to Damascus.
So you spent quite a bit of time in Sweden then?
Yeah.
Okay. And during that time in Sweden, sounds like it's more than a year.
Yeah, it was.
You're not seeing your husband?
No.
Are you...
Once he came, when my daughter was 2 months or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you in a community of fellow Islamic people? I forget what the community is called.
Muslims, yeah.
Yeah, Muslims.
Yeah, they were different kinds of nationalities staying there in Sweden. We were in Halmstad by that time. I was not in Stockholm, I was in Halmstad. And we were, tagging along. We were hanging and talking, and I was taking care of I'm not sure when I started with that. Maybe I should do. I'm not sure when I started to do dawah on the internet. Now I'm not sure when I started.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But it's 2002-ish. You're in Halmstad.
Yeah.
Are you wearing the niqab around?
Yeah.
Okay, so how are Swedes looking at you now? After 9/11, there's more knowledge about Muslims than ever before. People pay more attention to them, and also, with a very negative inflection. Like there's a lot of Islamophobia going around. You're in Halmstad. You're wearing the niqab. You remove. Maybe no one ever sees you, but you remove it, and wow, there's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Swede. How are people treating you? How is your parents treating you? Because presumably your entire worldview, how your family views you, is deeply affected by 9/11.
I was I was a bit what's it called, weak or scared or self-conscious when I went to my old street where our house was. I went to meet my parents. I took away the face veil because I was not strong enough to have it in front of my old neighbors. But I felt other times I was walking the streets, I felt it was harsh sometimes. People were a bit suspicious, and I felt the eyes on me, but I was not badly treated or so. We were just, staying in our. We were hanging with our friends, and our children were playing together. We were doing some Islamic lectures, and it was very easy living. I was living on child care money from Försäkringskassan, and very, very cheap living. Didn't buy anything, didn't do anything expensive. And I had my parents there. So it was very, didn't do much. And yeah. Mm.
But maybe just specifically talking with your parents.
Yeah.
Are they talking to you about 9/11 and saying, did you know anything about this? What's going on? Where's your husband? What do your kids think? Are they asking you sort of difficult questions that might, cause an argument with you? Or are they also being very, very careful about what they're saying to you?
I think they were careful. I think they didn't want to. They didn't want to make me take a stand against them. So we were, walking around the hot porridge.
Walking on eggshells.
Yeah, we were walking on eggshells.
Although walking around the hot porridge is a much funnier.
Yeah, this is We didn't address these subjects because we knew it was too difficult. I don't remember. I was asked even these things.
Really?
No.
Yeah. Would you have been feisty and ready for a fight in response?
I was. I think I was. I was just going to de-dramatize things. Maybe if it was in that case it was my husband. I'm sorry, my father who would ask me, and I would just, I think, snaky, give a snaky answer, try to turn his his attention to something else.
So very good Swede, non-confrontational.
Yeah, non-confrontational. Yeah. And my parents were very into my children.
Sure.
Grandchildren was the main focus on that for them, and that we had a good relationship. They, as my husband turned up, they met him, and I think he made an impact that he was responsible and educated and serious. So I think my father was like calmed down a bit. That okay, maybe he's not so bad. And
okay, so you're in your early 30s. You've got 3 children, and you've just moved to Damascus. Talk about living in Damascus and sort of maybe the attention. I remember from the book a particular moment where your daughter is getting a lot of attention because she's blonde, walking around the streets of Damascus. So what's your life like in Damascus?
Yeah, well, we had to fight the cockroaches in our apartment because there were a lot. But we had a very nice family life there. We were walking the streets, going out in the evenings, taking strolls, going to the market, buying food. We were holding on to each other, having the children with us, and it was very calm, nice family life, And we were also watching Mr. Bean videos, and my husband was playing Need for Speed on the computer. The children, the boys started to go to Quran school, and my husband's mother came to visit us too. So I had met his father in Berlin. He went to visit us there once or twice, and then the mother came to visit, and so we had a very calm family life. And we were discussing that other families would come too to live with us there. But it was not. It didn't happen really yet. And we were buying dresses back to Sweden, so that some, clothes in Syria is very beautiful, and many dresses I think women would like to buy. So we tried to make some business, And we were trying to create a life there. It was maybe not as easy as we thought to put the children in a real school, because we had to have maybe not tourist visa, something else to.
Okay.
Yeah, but we didn't solve that problem, but we were trying to.
And you mentioned that you're there because it's some type of front.
Close to it.
Okay, so what is your husband's purpose in Damascus? Is he again doing something savvy with business to raise money? Is he organizing attacks? How's he filling his time during his days there?
He had contacts with brothers all around, and he was trying to organize. I think first of all he was trying to organize a life for his family so that he could then go to Iraq. That was his purpose, what I know. I'm not sure now what he was doing.
Okay.
Nah.
What do you suspect?
But he was planning to be a mujahid and to fight the.
He wanted to fight.
He wanted to go and fight the Americans.
What was stopping him from calling up one of his brothers and getting smuggled in a van to the front line?
He wanted to secure his family first.
Okay.
That was what we were doing. And then he waited for his brother. The brother I called Abu Ibrahim in the book, and his wife, Katarina.
So you would talk with him about his business, I suppose, his life.
With his plans?
His plans.
No,
exactly.
not really.
No.
He didn't talk to me a lot about his plans. He just he wanted me to be secure. He didn't want to take me to a war zone, and I didn't want to live in a war zone. I understood we had to live apart. This was, I think, the only thing I knew by then.
Right. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
So far with the story, you've lived many years apart from both the husbands separately at times, right?
Yeah.
So how many years are you in Damascus before?
Oh, I wasn't there very long.
Okay.
No, a few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were onto you right away.
Yeah, they were. They were. The French, I think, were really keen on taking this person's side. Said Arif, as was his name, and he had many nom de guerre, many nicknames. I called him Sliman, but he was also called Abdurrahman and different things. So they were onto him, and they were actually using the Syrian police to take him. And keep him. So one day he was when my what's it called, svärmor, my husband's
auntie.
No, but my husband's mother is called my.
Oh yeah, your mother-in-law.
My mother-in-law.
The in-laws.
Yeah, my mother-in-law was left one day, like going back, and a few days later. my husband was going out to look for another apartment for us, and he didn't come back for many hours, and I was getting worried. And then it was a big bang on the door, and my son went there to open, and I was hiding in the kitchen. I took my veil on.
But because another man cannot see you.
Yeah, because I didn't know what was coming. Like strange, somebody, we didn't know anybody,
right.
you know, and it was banging on the door. So I got very suspicious. Mm-hmm. And in the same time they were talking to my son by the door, my husband called me and said, "Wear your niqab." And then I understand that he had been arrested. And a lot of men went into the apartment, and they took like many things from us. They said, your husband is under arrest, and you are, they didn't say to me what was going to happen to me. But now they were asking for documents. And I said, I have some documents in my living room. In my bedroom. So they went there and they found, I think, his passport and other things. And then they took the computer, and I was, that's my computer. Why are you doing it? It's not his computer. And why are you so many men here? I'm just one woman. Why? What are you doing? Like, I got angry. Yeah. And then they went, and they had some guard outside. Not guard, but somebody was. I saw somebody was patrolling back and forth outside my apartment, and I wondered what was going on. Are they going to let me go out or not? So I checked. I took the garbage, and check what's going to happen. And they just ran to me. Wow, you are not supposed to go out. Go in. So okay, then I dropped the garbage and went in. And how am I going to buy some food then? Or I asked him. And after a while they came and said, okay, what you want to buy? And we're going to buy it for you. And
so they're waiting in the apartment for a long time.
Yeah, I was
Why?
in house arrest.
Okay.
I was put in house arrest. I didn't understand until that time. And I was not allowed to go out. First, they went to me to buy. I was going to buy things, but it didn't work. So I gave them money later on, and they bought things for me, what I wanted to. The boys, or Anas, he could still go out to go to the Quran school. And I told him to try to phone home by one occasion. He left a message to my father on his phone. It was very, very worrying time. Yeah. We didn't know what was going on and how this was going to be, but I understood I had to contact Sweden to let them know that we were stuck.
So you're being kept under house arrest, but the details and questions are not being answered.
No.
And so you're just, I suppose, very frightened. What's our future? Where's my husband? We're in this strange country. How many months were you stuck in the apartment for?
I think I was there for 2 months, and then 2 months in another apartment.
And they wouldn't let you leave?
No, I was not allowed to.
That must be so horrible.
Yeah, it was. I had everything I needed. I mean, when we were sick, they took a doctor there to give us medicine, and but I was discussing with them all the time. When the police came, when their chef came, like the high commander came, I tried to reason with them, and I asked, where are my rights? As I was Swedish, I was like, that was what I was used to. I have a Swedish passport. What are you doing? I want my embassy, blah, 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 you know. So I was reasoning with them, and I sneak out in the evening. I had to, as they didn't answer me. After a week, I dressed like a Syrian woman, and I snuck out from like passed by these men who were sitting outside my apartment.
And dressed like a Syrian woman means it's just regular clothing.
Yeah. I tried to look like a Syrian woman, like a Syrian, but I
Coloring
didn't.
your hair and
Yeah,
stuff
I
like
had
that.
a small shawl and a normal dress. To go to telephone shop, and where they thought I was Russian, but it didn't matter anyway. So I could call my father and explain to him what had happened. So he then could contact foreign ministry, the foreign ministry in Sweden, to get help for me.
Yeah.
I explained to him where I was. I gave him the address, and he gave the address to the embassy. And a while after, I don't remember how long, the embassy turned up outside the apartment and called to me. And they were not allowed to. They called even though they were not allowed to. So they had found me, and the police moved me then. After next day, they put me and my children in another apartment. Yeah.
And this second apartment was quite bizarre.
Yeah, it was.
All these kids, and then a really interesting detail about how a bunch of wives there had killed their husbands.
Oh!
Stuff like that? Or have I skipped a step? That's the prison.
That's the prison.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I was in another apartment. It was a normal apartment, and I was sitting there for another 2 months, I think. And I was sneaking out a few times to phone also, and trying to. I was also kind of. I was stressed because my visa was going to run out, and I know if the visa is out, I get another problem.
Yep.
And they could pin that to me, like.
And no word from the husband this entire time?
No, nothing. I didn't know anything. They were like talking to me. Now we're going to release him now, and I was what? And they didn't, of course. Yeah. Anyway, I contacted my father again, told them I was in a new place, tried to give them some explanation how to drive to go there, and I was planning to flee, to climb down this by by the sheet.
Yeah.
The sheet. Yeah. I didn't. But I was thinking, okay, I have to go before the visa is out. But then I prayed to God to ask me to guide me if this is good for me, make me do it. If it's not good for me, make me stay. And I stayed. So anyway, then they decided I have to go. I'm going to Sweden now. But it was not really ready for the ticket was not really ready. So they, as I understood it, their surveillance police, put me in care of another part of the Syrian society. What's it called?
Secret service, secret police.
Yeah. They gave me. They gave the charge to somebody else, and it was the immigration. Thing.
Yeah.
So as they were checking out the different possibilities to send me home to Sweden, I was put in a jail for women with my children for a week, and there it was it was a shock for my children. Understood that we were going to they understood the word Sijin in Arabic. Now you're in the prison.
Right.
So they started to cry, and everybody cried, and they were really. The people there were the guards. The men were nasty and
For example?
they were smirking at you, like they were patronizing and why are you dressed like that? You're a Christian, or oh, you have a knife here. They found a kitchen knife, and oh, what are you going to do with this, or something? And they wanted to ask me if I had valuables so they could take care of them, and it was they did this they had a very unfriendly way of going around. And it was very hostile. I can't really explain. They didn't touch me. They were not abusive in that way, but they were it was very obehagligt, like uncomfortable and scary. Yeah. So we were in a cell. We first in one big cell, and a few days after they moved us to a smaller cell with other women, and I understood that these women were all kinds of women except prostitutes, because they were in another cell. Yeah. So there were also other children there, and lone children, one 13-year-old, an old woman who had a fight with her neighbor, and some visa problem. With some people were just there, overstayed their visas, and I got to know a lot of people there. It was very
And some women who had killed their husbands.
Yeah, also.
Yeah, lots of them. Were they in a similar situation to you? Like, were there any other extremist Muslims?
No. Okay. It's only me, and I was the only one from Europe, I think.
And you could speak Arabic easily at this point?
Yeah, I had been practicing a lot with the police. we spoke with Arabic during this time, and some, I think, maybe spoke English too. I don't remember really.
Okay, so you've gone from coming into this country, then within a few months, your husband's gone. The secret police are onto you. You've spent 4 months in house arrest. Now a month or so in prison.
A week.
A week in prison. Is your next stop then Arlanda, Stockholm Airport?
It was Copenhagen. They sent me. I think it was through Vienna and then to Copenhagen.
And is there a police escort on these planes?
No,
do they just put you on it and trust that you'll go the full way?
Yeah, they put me there and sent me.
And you wanted to go back to Sweden?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I longed to go back by that time.
Did you ever find out what happened to your husband?
No, I just understood he was in a very bad place, taken by Syrian police. It was the worst.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of the dictator at the time. I forget his name. What is it?
Bashar al-Assad.
Okay.
Yeah. The same as today.
Yeah. And he's just got no tolerance for
we
Mujahideen.
We knew also that this was a police state. As I've heard only bad things about the Syrian about Syria.
Yeah.
And I was it was people were afraid. I noticed when I was walking and out in the society, like it was an oppression there.
Yeah.
Okay. He was staying in Syrian prison for a year. I was back in Sweden. I had just moved. I was pregnant. I noticed during my house arrest. I noticed I was pregnant. I had given birth to my last son, who I call Khalid in the book, and I had just moved to Stockholm from Halmstad because I wanted my sons to start in a Muslim school. And I had a phone call from a friend who said that her husband had read an article that the French police have had an extradition or like something.
Prisoner swap.
Maybe not swap or, well, they had personal transport from Syria to Paris.
Okay.
Or they were going to, and they had caught a big fish, as they said. It was a jihadist, and he was, very, very significant person in that group. It must be your husband, she said. So I went to internet and I read, and I thought, oh, it must be this one. And it must be my husband. I tried to find the lawyer he was appointed to, and I found him. And then I got a letter from my husband. And it was the first sign of life for a year. And he asked me, is our son born? How is he? Like, he knew there was a boy, but because he had seen him in a dream or what. And then we started to exchange letters, and we did this for 7 years, back and forth. And in the end, we also could speak on the phone. And I was living alone during this time in Stockholm, and I had started to make dawah on the internet so that I could have a reason to stay in Sweden, because you're not allowed to, in our group, we were not allowed to stay in Sweden without a reason. And the reason for me was then to make dawah, to make an invitation to Islam, and that was what I was doing. And I was meeting a lot of women who wanted to, and also some men I helped to inform them on how to convert. And and my boys went to this Islamic school. I by maybe 2006 or something, I understood I have to find an income way of, because my children were getting bigger. And
so how were you supporting yourself for those years?
This was Försäkringskassan. It was, okay. I had got some help, so I could got an apartment in my name, and a rental, and had a big social network, a lot of women, meeting a lot of women. We were very active in many ways. We were doing sports. We were renting, swimming in lone places. We were trying to make a life, and then I decided that I wanted to do an education. And it was an education I could stay at home to study, to become a teacher. And I did this, started this, and my husband was in the loop, like he was okay. It was okay as long as you don't go and sit with men. And I got his permission, kind of. I had to go to the university sometimes, and I took.
You didn't tell him.
No, I don't think I told him. No, but I took my son as my what's it called? Chaperone. Yeah, it was terrible.
Okay, but you said something interesting there about you had 7 years of correspondence with your former husband. What happened to him?
He was in he didn't tell me a lot about his prison year in Syria, but he said he was beaten and living in a hole and electrocuted. But he managed. And then he went to France, and he was first in Paris, I think, for a while, and then they put him in a place called Fresnes, down south.
Which is another prison?
Yeah, another prison, and where he was also waiting for his court and conviction and everything. And he was changing lawyers, and it was a lot of going on with him. They were going to sentence him to a long prison time, but while he was doing this, he was actually sitting his time, So even if they were, I don't know how to explain, but he was
time served.
Time served.
Yes,
exactly.
Okay, but you're having correspondence with him. Why do you end up stop talking to him? Is it because you're no longer a Muslim at this stage, or what happens?
Yeah, what happens is that I was independent, starting to study again at the university, and got to. In my way came this literature again, which I had already, in my other life, been studying. Humanistic literature, discussions with other students, which were not Muslims. I understood they were good people, even if they were not Muslims. And during all this time, I also had been in Halmstad, where I met my parents' neighbors, and they were also good people. So I got exposed to people who were very nice but not Muslims, and I looked at them and said, they're tip-top good. And I was not saying, I was not hating them, During this time, I also started to long for companionships and again, like romantic. And I was starting to watch TV, which also I think made an impact because I saw people there too, which I admired,
Like who? Athletes, TV presenters. Who do you admire on TV?
I saw MASH. Do you
right. Yeah, I've never watched it, but I think I know what it is. Yeah. It's like a Vietnam American TV show.
Korea.
Right? Okay.
They were in Korea, and anyway, I saw ER.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just regular TV shows.
Regular TV shows, and they were
Western culture.
And I saw Oz. Do you remember Oz?
I do actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brutal show.
And they were good and bad people in that show.
Yeah.
And I liked that very much too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And all this put together, I started to realize I was longing for something else, and I couldn't really sign on my old life anymore. I noticed that I had different values. I couldn't defend capital punishment or physical punishment anymore. I noticed that I saw my clothes standing for something that I couldn't sign on.
Yeah.
So I asked my husband to come and visit him when he had got sentenced, and he was moved to his final destination, kind of, in France before he was released. And it was a prison down by Marseille. It's a small town called Arles. And we decided that I should go there and take my children with me, so we could spend some time together. And in this prison, you could have family days 3 per day, per year. I'm sorry, 3 days per year, and we put 3 days before New Year and 3 days after. So
smart.
yeah, so we went there and stayed with him for a few days in like a family apartment. It was very strange.
Was it awkward?
It was awkward with the guards who came and went every day and just checking on us.
But with the husband, it wasn't awkward.
Well, it was. I still had a lot of sympathy for him. I had a lot of. I had still respect, you know, but I had no conviction anymore that his way of living was the one for me.
Right.
And my children. So we were discussing a lot of things, and I was asking him, do you believe in this, this, and this? And he said, yes, yes, yes. And I am even more convinced now, you know. And I said, but I don't believe in this anymore. I'm sorry, I don't think a woman can depend on a man like this. It's not good. He could be a bad person, and she's not allowed to do anything if he forbids her. I had read, you know, Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, and it was really, really important for me to kind of decide, you know, I hate this, you know, right. I hate this this patriarch way of seeing marriage and
the hierarchy, the strict rules and
everything, and how a woman, the situation for a woman in this how it have been also in Europe, you know, a woman totally dependent on a man who could be just deciding everything over her head. I wanted to be independent. I didn't want a marriage like that anymore. And I didn't believe in violence. I was convinced I wanted to get out from that. So we said goodbye. I didn't ask for divorce during that time because I didn't want to leave him in that, to make him sad the last time he saw me.
But you had made it clear that the way of life you had been living was no more.
Yeah, I was telling him I was doubting this way of living. I could not stand for violence anymore, or this punishment in Islam, or this way of marriage. And so he knew that.
How did he respond to that?
Yeah, he was sad, I saw, but he was also not. He couldn't really accept that I was planning to leave him. Like he couldn't. I'm not sure he could understand that what I was telling him now is that I was not going to anymore. I think he understand I was trying to be honest with him, but I didn't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
So we talked about all these things all days for a week, but I didn't say the word I want a divorce. I was nice to him and he was nice to me. We were not enemies. I was not romantically involved with him, but I was not pushing him away.
Yeah.
Kind of. So I left and I asked a brother when I came home to help me to get a divorce, as was the way.
Yeah.
And after some difficulties, I got the divorce, but Said didn't let go. He was trying to he was phoning and he was continuing.
He was hounding you.
Yeah. So he was not giving up.
And help me on the timeline a little bit. So he's not giving up, but you get the divorce.
Yeah.
What year is that?
2010.
And you are how old?
I am 40
with 4 kids. Said eventually leaves France and comes to Sweden. So what happens there?
He was he flee he fled he fled, and he he turned up one day, knocking on this door here.
In this apartment?
Yeah, this apartment.
Oh, wow.
And
so you could have seen him coming?
Yeah, but I was sitting in my bedroom.
Yeah.
And I think it was my daughter who, father is there.
Like, oh, wow.
His father. And I was, okay.
You scared in that moment?
No. He has rarely made me scared.
He's not a violent...
No, he's not.
I guess
not
to
that,
infidels he's violent.
Yeah, he wants to kill infidels.
But to fellow Muslims?
He's not that kind of person who has shown aggressive things towards me.
Right.
But yeah, and we were talking, and it was a very strange situation. As I understood it, he was planning by this time to get a relationship with the children, so he could remove them from me.
Mm-hmm.
So this was his plan, because he understood I was not going to marry him again.
Yeah.
He had understood that.
And by this time, how much have you left the faith?
Completely.
So when you're talking to him at the door there, it's an atheist speaking to a Muslim?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So he knew I was bad for his Muslim children, and he wanted to save them from me. So he didn't say that, like, I'm going to kidnap your children, but he said, I want to have a relationship with the children, and I want to go out with them. And I said, you are not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not allowing that. If you want to go out, I want to go with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they took contact with me, the SÄPO, the Swedish security police.
Mm-hmm. The secret police.
The secret police. They contacted me, and I said, "What are you doing? You know he's here, don't you?" "Yeah, we know, but we want to check it out, see what he's doing, and who is he? You know where he lives?" They were trying to take information from me, and I was so stressed about the situation. They didn't care. They just wanted me to tell them more about what he's doing, what he's saying, and I was angry. So this continued for a while, and then suddenly they it was an altercation. Altercation here in the kitchen, where he was a bit where my children, my boys, came to stand beside me, and I don't now really remember what was said, but he was a bit hostile towards me by that time, and he said, "Now you will have a hard life," to me, because I just put down my foot or something like that, and he was reacting. And then I phoned the normal police and made an police like an anmälan. Yeah, well, I tried to make them go and get him. Yeah. And after that, they took him, the secret police. They arrested him and sent him back to France. But it took a while. I don't remember how many weeks he was here, but it was a long time.
And can he come to Sweden anymore?
No, he's dead. He died 2015. They say he was he was back in the house arrest. He had he was sitting in house arrest in a French village because they couldn't send him back to Algeria. and he fled from there to here first time, and then back again by the police, and then he fled the second time, but this time he went to Iraq, Syria, to be in the Nusra front as a commander, as what I've read at the internet, and he was killed in a bomb, I think. Yeah. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's 2015. It'd be interesting to revisit, say, the years from 2004 onwards, where you've come to Sweden and you're grappling with your old faith, but then as well becoming an atheist. But I'd also like to know culturally how Sweden accepted you. Because there was controversy over you, for instance, wanting to exclude your children from music education in school.
Yes.
And, you were still a strict Muslim in the early days. No TV, no music. So I'd love to hear you reflect on how you were accepted back into the country and then as well coming out of Islam.
Could we take a small break?
Definitely, yeah. How do you think it's going?
Yeah, my head is a bit tired.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But there are so many... there are many details, and I'm not sure how much details I could, go into. And sometimes it's just blank.
Right.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's
anymore.
okay.
Yeah.
But I think now for the final part, just talking about how Sweden accepted you, I'd also love to hear you talk about what you think about the role of Islam today in Sweden, how you think about the parallel societies of certain communities being totally separate from other communities, stuff like that. So maybe it's more just your own opinion now, and you'd have to worry about dates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But do you remember the question I asked you before we went on a break?
Yeah, from 2004.
Come into the microphone a bit.
Yeah. By 2004, I was in Stockholm. I had moved there to many old friends again, and friends I've already had got to know in my years in Lund and Halmstad, and I was taking contact with a place, an internet page called Cage Prisoners, which was helping helping Muslims who were forced to or been imprisoned and subjected to torture, so that Western governments could, for information, they let other people torture them and got the information they needed to convict them or gather information. I told them about my husband, and they printed the story on their page. And I wanted to gather money for my husband's defense. That was what I was doing 2004 and 2005, I think. And I got some contact with Swedish activists by that time too.
The question was more to do with how Sweden is accepting you coming back into society.
I was not really in the society. I was just living.
So you were still very isolated in a Muslim community.
Yeah, I was isolated. I was doing my children went to school, but they went to Muslim schools.
And is that where you made the complaint that they should be excluded from music class?
Yeah, first that was in Halmstad. Before I moved to Stockholm, I'm sorry, that was in Halmstad. my son was old enough to start in school, and it was a normal Swedish school, and they had, as we have in Sweden, a lot of music everywhere and instruments and things. And I really tried to, emerge these systems together, and it didn't work, of course.
Of course
but
not. Yeah.
but I tried to. I had bad conscience that I was living there, and I tried to make it halal for me to live there. That is.
Means it's all good.
Yeah, not forbidden. It is allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, but it didn't work, and I took contact with the authorities and said my son is Muslim, and it will be a conflict in him if he have music in school. But they said no, this is how we do it in Sweden, and it's good for every child to have music. So
maybe when media started coming around to your attention, so when the book's being written and when it comes out, how does Sweden react to you at this point?
The thing is, the worst reactions I got was from my hometown. The newspaper in Halmstad, and how that journalist wrote about me, and how my old classmates' parents were reacting. I felt hostility in Halmstad. That was first of all. They didn't accept this They didn't accept how I turned out.
They thought you should somehow pay for the decisions you had made.
Yeah, I think they would like me to go to prison. And they were angry how I could subject my children to this. And of course they were right,
How difficult was it emotionally to go through that?
It was very, very sad. I had very mixed feelings about my hometown. I wanted them to see me as somebody who just no, I'm not sure what I wanted. After the book came out, I wanted to be accepted as Anna again, my old self. But as I took this decision to write the story, I also made it clear for everybody what I have been doing, and what my children have been subjected to, and there was no way around that. And they could judge me or see it as good for you, Anna, that you took the children out from this mess instead of staying. But many choose to condemn me instead and say you were wrong, and that's it. And we don't want anything with you anymore. We don't want contact with you. We don't like you. You were dumb and dangerous and naive.
What about accusations of you radicalizing other Swedes or other people to become Muslim? And a type of yeah.
Yeah, that was my own. I was very aware of what I have been doing, but other people have not maybe said anything about that. Not a lot. It was more myself who reflected on that.
Yeah. So it'd be really interesting to hear more about that transition back to atheism. Because it's polar opposites. You go from extremist Islam to there is no God. You know, you mentioned Simone de Beauvoir or something like that.
Simone de Beauvoir.
Okay, yeah. It sounds a lot nicer when you say it. The ideas from her book made you think differently about, say, the role of females in society. But could you speak more about the ideas that moved you towards atheism?
For instance, the ideas in social anthropology, which is very much a description of your you know, you have this biological or this social place you are on Earth, make you build an explanation. It depends on where you are born on Earth, which explanation you create about your purpose and also your religion. So when I studied that in my teacher education, it was very obvious for me that okay, so this religion emerged from this place. And I was studying, you know, New Guinea and everything, and also, around your environment.
My neck of the woods.
Yeah. And it was like, it was so interesting, and the literature was so amazing, and I was, all these fantasies people have come up with, and it all ends up in religion. So for me, it was just, and it was very clear that people create gods, and it all depends on how the god and the religion look like. It depends on from where they are, you know, the people. So it was just another check for me that religions are crazy, and we are just boxing in ourselves, in our heads, you know, making our life smaller and our thinking smaller. And because I had also during this time seen a lot of hypocrisy in my own religion, and that it didn't work, like it was not logic. People were finding loopholes for themselves. Men were not nice, and when they were not nice, they were in fact oppressing women. And the religion said that women should obey. So it didn't make sense. It was a lot of. I found a lot of faults. You know, I could just pinpoint them all one after another all the time, and for me it was added up.
And those just rational, logical arguments, had you been exposed to them before 2004?
No.
And do you? Okay.
Not really. I mean, I saw the bad guys. I saw the bad husbands. Yeah. But they were just.
But the idea of like, why are Christians and Catholics here versus Buddhists here versus Islamic people here? Yeah. The geographical explanation, that didn't occur to you as much?
No, I didn't think about that a lot, because it was going to be this cognitive dissonance in my head, and I was just keeping it away from me, I think. Okay. Yeah. I didn't think, you protect yourself.
So what about the question of faith then? Because from my understanding, at least, a totally devout religious person, you can present them with all of these logical fallacies, reasons why religion probably doesn't exist, or God doesn't exist. But then they lean back on this leap of faith, this idea of taking the leap and believing in spite of the lack of evidence. I mean, you de-radicalized through facts and logic. by just thinking rationally about it. But what about that question of the faith?
First, I still when I was departing, I still had faith in God. I just didn't believe in the rules anymore. But
The Islamic God?
I think I had some strange. I was still Muslim. I was still praying, but I was not a strict person anymore for a while. And of course, this didn't work. So it was just for a while, and then I left it all. Because it didn't. I wanted consequence in my life. I wanted to be. I don't know the English word now. I wanted to follow through on my things, on my decision. Commitment. I wanted to be committed, and it had to make sense. And during a time after 2010, I still had a belief in God, but I noticed that the rules didn't work. So it was just, I was leaving, I was.
Do you now have a deep sympathy for religious people? Or do you think that they're all just one good argument away from not believing anymore?
I have sympathy for their wish for love and safety,
From a God.
From a God. I understand that, and they are feeling alone in the social society, in the relationships, and in the working, in the harsh environment, So they need love from something else, from somebody, and it is from this being. And I think it's deeply human. Of course, it is, as we have seen in history, So I understand that, and I respect that people want to lean on that idea to find safety and meaning, but I cannot really respect it. I cannot really follow through on that. If you have it in your own heart and you want to pray to a God, okay. But please don't make it like a system of ideas. Please don't force it on somebody. Don't talk about it like this is the thing, because it is just something you need for yourself, So this is what I think. It's very dangerous for me with religion. like how we create it and what it does to people.
I mean, it's one of the most fascinating curiosities of humanity.
It is.
Of humans.
It is
how some can believe so fully, and then some cannot. Personally, my dad, for instance, is the least tolerant person to religious people I've ever met. According to him, they're all idiots. How could they think that way? which is the wrong way to go at it, obviously, because most of the world have they believe in one God or another. But then add in the argument of the geographical thing.
Oh, there's.
That's your boy?
There's my husband and his boy.
Oh, nice.
And he's the most. He's. When you talk about your father, he's the thing. He's just the same.
Oh, really?
It really is people. Oh my God.
I mean, isn't that kind of hilarious how you've gone through the whole spectrum then?
Yeah, I know. It's hilarious.
From a jihadist to a pure atheist.
Yeah, it's so strange. It is so strange.
Do the names Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens mean anything to you? Christopher Hitchens or Sam Harris?
No.
No, okay. They're just very famous atheists. Who do, but nonetheless. How do you reflect on the ethics of the period of your life where you're living in Georgia, you're living in Syria, you're living in Berlin. The ethics of the person you were and the decisions you made.
I was not taking responsibilities as a mother. I was not. I was. I was not follow through. I was not following through. You know, I was making life easier than it is. You know, by boxing in my thinking. And it was to protect my world, you know. But it's not an excuse, really. But it was. I can't explain really. I was abusing myself in that way, and abusing my family. And I was not fair towards us by doing this. I was lying, kind of, you know, because I was closing my eyes. And maybe that is how all religious people do. I'm not sure, but I think so. In my way, in my situation and my circumstances, is were dangerous in another level, because it was like militaristic violence. It was about. So it was not only that I forced my ideology on my children. They also were subjected to this jihadism, which could lead to their death, as it has done for many of my friends' children. Yeah. They are dead today. So I knew what I was doing, but in the same time I was blind towards the danger, you know, because I believe the real life was the next life. This life was just
really,
yeah. This life was not the real life. You were living this life to go to the real life.
Wow. That's such a cruel lie. I mean, if you assume it to be a lie, right? Because we only get one shot here.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you live it all thinking that the real shot is the next one.
Yeah. So and this was all the time used as an argument to have patience with shit.
Yeah.
Because when your husband was bad, you should just have patience,
right.
And you will get that patience will be the key to paradise for you.
Yeah.
And so they use that, and we use it for
suffer now, paradise later.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah, I can see why that's such a manipulative way to think about things, or way to just turn it back on you.
Yeah.
How can you be so impatient? You know.
Exactly.
Wow. Look, of the personal questions, that's all I've got. I've got some general questions about Sweden and Muslims and Islam in Sweden. But just before we move on from your own personal story, I want to ask you if there's anything I didn't bring up or anything you wanted to mention just regarding your story as it is in the book, and any reflections you may have like that.
Yeah. I could add something. It's why I left this violent extremism is I think I should say it's like I had ideological doubt, you know, because of what I saw, you know. I also had I was also what's it called, disillusioned about the people I saw. That's also important, you know. And I also got other priorities in life, you know. So I think that together is important, maybe to understand why but another thing that is very important is that I had a way out. I had my parents, so who didn't close the door for me. If they had, I could maybe still have been there, because I didn't maybe know anything else.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah.
So when you have a person in your in your closeness somewhere with you who are in a sect or in a religious group like this, you should not close the door. That's very, very important. That's what I would like to say.
And one would assume that typically going down such an extreme path like you did, you would be burning bridges behind you.
Yeah.
And therefore very few people might have actually something to return to.
Yeah, exactly. My parents and my neighbors did not close the door. And it was
The great people of Halmstad.
I'm sorry, Halmstad.
Okay. Okay. A couple of questions that you are particularly suited to answer, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Can anyone become radicalized?
Yeah. Under circumstances when they are put together, yes. You have to have many things should happen at the same time, and then yes. You don't have a purpose in your life, really. You don't know where to go. You are destabilized by maybe drugs, or you have a weak self worth, as I did. I thought I had nothing really going for me. I had to. The only thing I could make people laugh. I was cute, and that's it. Like, so, you know, I didn't believe in myself really. So. Yeah, you could really get to people and brainwash them if you have the right circumstances, I'm sure.
Yeah. And you speak a lot in the book about how, and this is your feelings at the time, I'm sure they've changed since, but how Muslims are mistreated and discriminated against by Westerners. How was your thinking on that changed?
You know, most of the Muslims living in the West, are just normal people who wants to take care of their families. They are believing in God, as many other millions and millions of people are doing. Nothing strange about that. And I'm not suspicious about them at all. They are just like everybody else. I know that Islam is a very harsh religion in some ways, but that could also be the fact with Christianity. So it depends on what circumstance you are in and what people you hang with, how harsh you get.
Do you think today in Sweden that Muslims are discriminated against?
I think they are absolutely... people are suspicious about them, and I'm sad about that because it's not fair. Our little group, for instance, we're not like normal Muslims, not at all, and it's not fair to subject moderate Muslims to that suspicion.
And is moderate Muslim like they wouldn't pray every day? They probably wouldn't even fast on Ramadan. They just say, "No, I'm a Muslim man."
I know where I work now. I work 2 days in a school in Rinkeby, and I know people there who are praying 5 times a day, and they are super nice, and they have no ideology as I had. So we could be religious but not have this jihadistic view. If that was the answer of your question.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Caliphate. It was a Swedish TV show made about young girls being radicalized and recruited for ISIS, based on true events.
I have not seen it.
Okay.
No.
I would just love to, because it's a fictional TV show.
Yeah.
But it would be very interesting to hear you reflect on the systematic radicalization that does happen in, say, Rinkeby, some of the more, quote unquote bad suburbs of Stockholm.
Yeah. As you are in between 2 cultures and you are marginalized, as you don't have the language, and you don't have any wealth. You have a weak self. You're doubting yourself and everything. I think it's not strange that these young people are easy targets to get radicalized, and to be sent away to ISIS as they did, as a bride or as a mujahid. It's not at all strange. It's very easy to manipulate people like that, and under this very strong tool as religion is, to in a fantasy world and everything, and you have the paradise, and the social status as a goal. You will get everybody's respect. You will get they would admire you, and purpose, and you will be beautiful in people's eyes because of your character. So no, it's not strange.
Right. It's interesting how so many things can be. The explanation for so much can always come back to status hierarchies and status games. Like if you are between cultures, so you're the firstborn of someone who came into Sweden as a refugee. Yeah, you don't have your home culture, but then you're trying to fit into this Swedish culture, which doesn't necessarily want anything to do with you.
No.
And so you're quite low status then.
Yeah.
But if you're offered the idea of, pick them as the enemy, become high status in this smaller community, it's very compelling.
It is.
And
really, and
completely understandable.
Yeah, and the wish to belong, it's so we are so afraid of being outside a community. We don't want to be alone. We could do anything to become somebody in a group. That's very human too.
What is your explanation for how Sweden has formed parallel societies, where you have places like Rinkeby and then you have places like, I don't know, Lidingö, where the two will never ever see each other, and they have a completely different worldview, ethnic makeup, religious makeup, all of it. How did it get to this point where it's so severely separate?
Oh, I am not sure. I'm not sure if I can explain. We want to have many. We want to have housing for poor people. We don't want them to live on the street. We want quick housing, so we build them here, like rentals, and this will become like a ghetto if we don't take care It's not high status place. Here we put all the poor people, but at least they don't live on the street. But the rich people don't want to live there. They want to live here, where they have expensive houses where they can sell with the wind. You know, this is how the capitalism works. You know, you have a value on everything, and this value is forming good places, bad places. I don't know how to stop it.
Is there any truth to this idea, one which I've felt many times in different areas, that because as well I'm sort of between cultures. You know,
Yeah.
I'm an expat in this city, and
What's that called?
An expatriate, like you're not an immigrant. You're just a foreigner working there.
Oh, okay.
That's an expatriate.
Okay.
So that's what I would be classified as. But, and obviously my experience is completely different to, someone who migrated here for a whole sort of different reasons. Anyway, I'm just trying to say that I have unbiased eyes on the culture.
Yeah.
Right? And I get this sense a lot that the Swedes are more than happy to be the good guys and pay money, because you do pay money in taxes, to allow for lots of people in worse circumstances to come and live in Sweden. And so the idea is, sure, you can come, but go over there. Because while you can be here, I don't want anything to do with you. Do whatever you want, but just do it over there. That's the sort of sense that I get. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Yeah, they don't. We don't want mixture. We don't want to disturb. This is very Swedish. Don't disturb. If we put poor people with the villas, we disturb the people in the villa, because they have to change their way of thinking, and it's disturbing. We cannot. It's not convenient for them. So this is surely true. You know. We haven't solved that. We cannot. We don't want to force poor people to rich people, kind of.
But is it all an economic divide? Because I think that, contrary to what many people think, Stockholm isn't full of rich people. There are like pockets of very rich people, but that's the same in any city. You know, from my drive here from Nacka to Sundbyberg, I went through a lot of areas where everyone's earning the same amount, and they're not rich. You know,
it's a little bit like here, I think.
It's all, the place where I live is exactly like this, and I can guarantee you, people are not rich in that area.
No,
most of them live off the government, right? So I'm not sure that it is all economics. It's just rich versus poor.
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's
if I
okay.
Can.
I'm just asking you to solve the problems of Sweden. Okay.
I wish I could be more enlightening.
How about final question then? You work as a teacher in Rinkeby. Could you try and help me understand, and the Swedish listeners, Swedish people who are listening understand, what are the particular complexities and issues in schools at places like Rinkeby?
Today we have a system where informed parents they choose to put children with other informed parents, children, you know. So left on the school, you have uneducated, you have parents who are uneducated and their children staying, you know.
staying at home or at school?
I mean, it's school.
Right.
There you have children with uneducated parents. And they don't get any help from home. They don't have educated and they don't have a place in society, these families. But they are living, they are staying at the same schools. This is a problem today. I don't know how to solve it, but we need mixture in pupils and children. We cannot have the system where you have high status people, educated people, hanging together, and we leave the other people alone, in their way. We need to mixture people. I'm not sure how to do that, but the market school is not helping. We need to change that system. That's it.
When you go and teach, do you hear the children speaking amongst each other more in Swedish or more in Arabic?
Swedish, broken Swedish, bad Swedish, but they speak in Swedish, and they are mostly many from Somalia in Rinkeby.
Oh yeah, and they speak their own language, right?
They speak Somali. Yeah. But they speak Swedish in school. It's like cool to speak Swedish. They have
nice.
Yeah, they have this broken Swedish is cool. So they it's like the group of pupils are unfortunately not seeing anything else. They just see each other, and they are grouping around a way of being which they are not challenged in their way of living, dressing, talking. They are just seeing each other, So it should be mixture of people and not this homogeneous way. I'm afraid that it will be very, very difficult for many of these students to find another goal in life, because they don't see anything else.
Another goal apart from what?
Staying and being chauffeur, taxi, or
there isn't aspirations.
No, exactly. Or becoming, becoming criminal.
Yeah.
So I know the teachers and the other grown-ups at school are doing their best to support them, but it's very, very difficult to give them other goals, because school isn't everything.
In your years teaching, are you seeing things getting better or worse?
It's the same, I've seen it's the same kind of culture in school, by this kind of rough mentality among the students in the school. It's very rough, but I don't feel unsafe there. But it's like tough, It's tough.
Right.
Tough.
Everyone's being a cool dude.
Yeah, yeah, and the girls too. They're all dressed in black. It's right. Like no colors.
There is this is totally anecdotal, right? So who's to say whether it's true or not? But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who I go to the gym with, who's Iraqi. But his parents are from Iraq, but the guy is Swedish. Anyway. And he was talking about how it's really actually quite difficult for him to get a job, and I know him to be a highly competent person, someone who, if you were a prospective employer he would be it would be a good addition to your team, right? A reliable person, competent person. Anyway,
Exact.
I as well, having worked for Swedish businesses, understand that there is this very peculiar cultural fit.
Yeah.
And to meet those standards, you have to almost be raised in Sweden, in a Swedish community, to understand what they are. So me, and I'm a pretty flexible guy, I was barely the right cultural fit. And he also as well admits to not being the right cultural fit.
Yeah.
And it definitely does not give me much hope for people getting jobs. If you look around the office I was in, 80 employees, one guy was from Somalia, and everyone else was Swedish, like Swedish, all handsome, tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. And as an anecdotal experience, just one singular point, it's really not good.
Yeah.
It's really not good.
No.
And it's very I don't know if it's nihilistic. That might be too. It's depressing. Yeah, it's kind of like, what? Well, no wonder they feel resentment towards you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what also makes it depressing is it's kind of like you throw your hands up in the air and say, well, what can actually be done about it? What can you actually do?
Yeah.
Rather than just continue on and accept that it's going to get worse in some areas, and some exceptional people will rise through that and become amazing. But the reality is the majority won't.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't end on a depressing note like that.
No, but there are people, there are there are people and parts in society who are really working and really doing great at changing this that I have talked about. You have decided to talk about too. This example, it's very. Very good efforts doing among I don't know, civil society. They are trying, but as our politicians aren't really doing much, we are just relying on people's good work by their good hearts, as I see it. Because politicians are not stepping up on this issue. Yeah, but it's depressing. I don't want to stop there either. But this. I think we have to change it, but I'm not sure how.
Okay. Well, is there anything that we did not talk about that you feel like should be mentioned?
I'm sure I'm going to find something later when you're gone. Maybe I will come to think about something, but now I'm just a bit...
Yeah, no, I understand. And you've been absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the English has been superb as well.
Uh-huh.
So
Thank you.
don't need to be worried about that. And it's an incredible story, your life. And I feel very privileged that you decided to share it with me on this podcast. I really admire how you completely turned it around. It's really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. Happy to talk to you.
All right, cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty.